This says the absence of or release from ties, obligations, etc. Again, this is the same thing as the previous one. This one says a particular immunity or privilege enjoyed as by a city or a corporation. That's interesting. That goes along, and there's a last one here, let me mention that too. It says a political right. Well, interesting, a particular immunity or privilege enjoyed, that is, if you look up the synonyms to freedom, the word freedom, it's amazing. You'll find things like license, permission, immunity. These are things granted by a state. These are things granted by a government, okay? These are granted by a body of leaders who say you can have these specific freedoms, the ones that we specify, okay? What you have to understand is that under communist rule, they will say their people have freedom. Certainly they will. Whatever freedoms they deem them to have, okay? But their people have freedom, but they don't have liberty. Now here's the difference. Now what I did is I went and looked up all the ones for freedom, all the ones for liberty. I removed all the definitions that equaled each other. Like there was a whole list of definitions. If they were the same, I just eliminated those. Then I boiled it down to the ones of freedom, and I found I could find the differences between the two. There was only one definition that really differed from the word freedom, and freedom does not contain this anywhere. This is liberty. It says free from arbitrary or despotic government or control. Now that's the difference. This also matches the biblical term, and of course the first place historically where liberty is mentioned, as far as I'm aware, is from Leviticus 25. And this is the biblical term, liberty, and this matches up with that. Now, of course, the Leviticus 25, if you read that, that is on our Liberty Bell, to where let liberty ring throughout the land, blah, blah, blah. All that's from our Liberty Bell. That comes from the Bible, okay? Now, liberty is free from arbitrary or despotic government or control. Now, arbitrary and despotic are the two adjectives here that really concern me, because at the time I read this, I didn't know what they meant. So I went and looked up despotism, okay, which is what the root word of despotic. So despotism is the rule of a despot, the exercise of absolute authority, absolute power or control, tyranny, okay? It said tyranny is arbitrary or unrestrained exercise of power, despotic abuse of authority. So basically a despot is a tyrannical ruler abusing absolute power, control, and authority, okay? So this is basically what it boils down to is, over here is one man's opinion. This man says, I have an opinion, I should be in power, and all these people should do what I say, and they should do it according to my standards. Okay? That is a despot. Okay? It's some other man telling you what to do and forcing you to do those things. It's control under another man's opinion. All right? Now, arbitrary means subject to individual will or judgment without restriction, contingent solely upon one's own discretion. Okay? This means that it's your own will. I decide what's best for me. I say all these things, and I'm going to do everything I want under my power. Okay? So liberty, in difference of freedom, it is to be free from your opinion, what we just said, arbitrary, and another man's opinion, despotic. Despotic and arbitrary control. That's what liberty is. So it's free from mankind's opinion. So that's a very interesting definition, because now you really come down to that there's only two other options here. If it's free to be free from your opinion and free from another man's opinion, there's only two options. Number one, there's no opinion, which everybody knows, like the old saying, everybody's got an opinion. Okay, everybody does. So we know it's not this other one, that there's no opinion. We're going to have an opinion somewhere. Or two, there has to be an opinion outside of man. Somebody's got to say something who is above and beyond man, that knows what's best for man. Okay? Because man obviously can't know what's best for man. Man ends up destroying himself. This happens repeatedly. All throughout history, man has been destroying himself. It happens all the time. So we've got to have some other word outside of man. Now, there's a video out there. I may make a reference to it on here. I may make a link over to the side that you can take a look at it for yourself. There's a video out by the John Birch Society that is a great 30-minute video. I highly encourage Americans to watch this, called Overview of America, in which they have this great chart explaining the different types of governmental systems, how you don't really have a monarchy, which is like, absolute rule and authority. Monarchies usually never exist. They're always what we call oligarchies. Oligarchy is a group of men that rule. Because even a king has lords, which he has spread out throughout the land. And, if you've ever seen any kind of movie where you have a king, and there's always some, one of the lords is trying to overthrow the king. They always, when they see the king, they're like, oh, king, live forever, just like they do to Nebuchadnezzar in the Bible. But they don't really want him to live forever. They want him to die so they can become king. But the thing is, the king can't upset the lords, rulers over the land, because they're going to overthrow him. So it always ends up being a group of men that end up ruling the world, in most cases. Then he goes to the other end of the spectrum where there's absolutely no law, no authority, which is anarchy. And anarchy doesn't last for very long, because an oligarchy, a group of men, will come in and take control of the situation. It always happens. And they end up having another oligarchy it creates another tyrannical form of government, because the people want control. They realize that they can't control themselves, and they need some sort of amount of government. So he listed, there's really oligarchy, democracy, and republic, okay? Now a democracy, I think that's what I've got here next, yes. If you have a democracy, it's mob rule, basically. And this video is excellent. I still encourage anybody to go and watch it. It says, if the majority decides to take away your house or your family, okay, all it takes is 51% of the people to be convinced that they need to take away your property. They can take away your house, they can take away your spouse, they can take away your children, and it happens. It becomes law. Does that make it right because they decided to do that? Well, no, that doesn't make it right, okay? Just because the people can claim something as lawful does not make it lawful, does not make it moral, does not make it good, and we'll get into that in a minute, okay? But in a republic, everything is centralized around the law. Now, in the John Birch Society video, they gave a great explanation, and here's what they said. They said, let's say there were, there were 35 people that go out to find this lone gunman, okay? They claim that he's the one that murdered so-and-so. So they go out to find him. They hunt him down. They find him. They capture him. They vote 36-1 to hang him, right? Except the one guy who's captured, I don't want to be hung. But they vote, other 35 guys vote that they're going to hang him, so they hang him. That's what happens in a democracy, okay? Now, in a republic, here's the difference. 35 guys go out to hunt this one lone gunman, and along comes the sheriff before they hang him and said, wait a second, you can't hang him. He's got a right to a fair trial under the law. Well, what's the sheriff saying? That he has rights beyond the opinions of mankind. Well, who's the person that gave this authority? Where is this authority being drawn from? Okay? Well, we have to have a standard for law. Let me give you some definitions of law here. Now, to understand the law, the definition of law I wrote down was the principles and regulations established in a community by some authority and applicable to its people, whether in the form of legislation or of custom and policies recognized and enforced by judicial decision. Now, notice it says by some authority. Well, whose authority? Whose authorities are we talking about here? But when we talk about the law, we talk about bringing people to justice. So let's find out what justice means. It says the quality of being just, righteousness, or moral, basically it's moral rightness, okay? Well, what is moral rightness? Well, let's look up moral first. It says moral, concerned with the principles of or rules of right conduct or the distinction between right and wrong, okay? Well, what is right? Right is in accordance with what is good, proper, or just. Okay, well now let's go to the opposite of right. What's wrong? Wrong is not in accordance with what is morally right or good. Okay, well what is good? Morally excellent, virtuous, righteous, pious. Okay? Well, now let's simplify this a little bit. Here's the bottom line of what it's saying. Law and justice are extensions of morality. Okay? Moral is the difference between right and wrong. Right is what is good, and wrong is what is not good. And good is what is moral. And moral is the difference between right and wrong. Can anybody else see the circular reasoning? You're going in a circular pattern here. Mankind does not have the ability to define right and wrong, to define what is good. There's only one place that we can look for this, to find out what is good and what is right. Okay? And that is from this book right here. This is where our country gets its constitutional republic standards from. The law comes from this book.